guess we're getting a little bit far ahead of ourselves, but Franklin Graham finds you refreshing. He doesn't find me refreshing. Richard Spencer, the white nationalist leader, says he could vote for you.
Joy, this is why.
I mean, you're on
here.
Tucker Carlson at least 10 times. Why don't you go on Chris Wallace's show?
This is why I'm here, because you and other people continue to spread these innuendos that have nothing to do with who I am.
Well, Hillary Clinton started it, and then you shot back at her, boy. You called her the queen of warmongers.
You doubled down, unfortunately, you doubled down on the baseless accusations that she made that strikes at the core of who I am. I'm a soldier. Because of the attacks on 9/11, I enlisted in the military to go after and defeat and destroy the evil that visited us on that day. I've served now for over 16 years, deployed twice to the Middle East during the height of the war, where every single day I saw firsthand the terribly high human cost.
Tulsi Gabbard stormed onto The View with a blaze that lit up the entire set, leaving the studio stunned into silence. From her very first words, the air grew thick with tension, and Joy Behar had no clue she was stepping straight into a storm she couldn't control. It started with Joy flashing her trademark smug grin and tossing one of her usual sharp-edged jabs. But this time, she crossed far beyond the line. Her weak insults and shaky claims looked desperate, a last-ditch attempt to corner Tulsi. What followed was pure fireworks. Tulsi, calm yet piercing, locked eyes with Joy and dropped a verbal thunderbolt, branding her a fool live on television. The moment was so shocking that the crowd gasped audibly as Joy's face turned crimson with humiliation.
I am a patriot. I love our country. I am a strong and intelligent woman of color, and I have dedicated almost my entire adult life to protecting the safety, security, and the freedom of all Americans in this country. It was the attacks on 9/11.
Tulsi refused to give Joy even a second to recover. Her eyes stayed locked, her voice slicing through the air like a razor. "You think you can smear me and I'll just smile for the cameras?" she fired back, each word landing like a punch. "I've faced enemies overseas who were more honest than this." The audience erupted in shocked murmurs as Joy tried to brush it off with a forced laugh, but the nervous glance she tossed at the other host told the real story. The tension was so suffocating that even the crew looked frozen in place. Co-hosts exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent, while Tulsi pressed forward with precision, steady, deliberate, and with every line hitting harder than the last.
Let me just close this out, that Hillary Clinton, throughout her career, has led with a foreign policy of interventionism and being the world's police, going and toppling dictators in other countries that has caused such destruction and loss of life. I'm against that.
Well, you've built a career tearing down anyone you don't agree with. Tulsi fired, pointing directly at Joy with unshakable resolve. But today, you picked the wrong person. Gasps and applause rippled through the crowd, fueling Tulsi's fire as Joy scrambled to respond and only to be cut off instantly. "No, you've had your turn. Now you're going to listen." The command in her voice froze Joy in place, her confidence cracking under the pressure. Tulsi's eyes narrowed as she delivered another blow. "You call yourself a truth teller, but all you've done here is spread lies and personal attacks." Her calm fury gave each word crushing weight, the kind that sticks in people's minds long after the moment passes. The air in the studio thickened, everyone realizing they were witnessing a showdown destined to explode across social media. Tulsi stood her ground with the poise of a soldier who had faced worse, and when Whoopi tried to spin it by accusing her of being defensive, it backfired instantly.
So, before I ask you the first question, what's happening with the telescope and the stuff?
Oh gosh, the challenge is ongoing. The challenge is ongoing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is that?
So,
Just explain.
they decided, it was decided that they were going to go on sacred land.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
And put up a telescope and do all this stuff. And the Hawaiians said, no, you're not going to do that. So it's been a fight. Tulsi's been at the forefront. Yeah. And I try to bring it up, you know,
I remember.
when I can, because it's, I think sacred land is sacred land. You can't, you know, you can't mess with it. So I have to ask you this instead. So we were just talking about EU Ambassador Sondland changing his testimony yesterday, that he had to be refreshed about quid pro quo, and you've been skeptical more than a lot of the Democrats about the impeachment inquiry. Were you surprised by what he did yesterday?
Well, look, the facts are important, and we'll get to that. I want to start with something that I think is also important about fact.
If you're enjoying this takedown, hit that subscribe button, Tulsi shot back without missing a beat. No, I'm not defensive. I'm correcting you because you're wrong and you know it. The crowd erupted, some clapping wildly, a few even rising to their feet in support. Joy's cheeks burned a deeper red, though she forced a stiff smile as if nothing was happening. The other hosts shifted nervously, their eyes darting toward the cameras with clear unease, but none dared to interrupt. Tulsi leaned back slightly, her composure unshaken, yet her voice stayed razor sharp. You invited me here to talk, yet all you've done is insult me. Is that what you call journalism? Her tone dripped with sarcasm, drawing bursts of laughter from parts of the audience.
It's offensive to me as a soldier, as an American, as a member of Congress, as a veteran, and frankly, as a woman, to be so demeaned in such a way.
But you called her the personification of rock.
So demeaned
She's a woman
in such
too.
a way. Well, I'm pointing to the fact that she has continued this legacy of being the world's police around the world, that has waged wars costing the lives of thousands of my brothers and sisters in uniform.
Growing desperate, Joy fumbled with her notes, pretending to search for a way out, but Tulsi refused to let the moment slip away. This isn't about me disagreeing with you, she declared firmly. It's about you spreading misinformation to millions of viewers, deliberately. The weight of her accusation slammed down like a hammer, the silence in the studio so thick it was almost suffocating. Joy stammered weakly, her voice trembling. Well, that's just my opinion. But Tulsi cut in instantly, her tone sharp as steel. No, Joy, that's not opinion, that's a lie, and there's a difference. The audience gasped, followed by a thunderous wave of applause that shook the room. For the first time, Joy looked cornered, her trademark confidence slipping into unease. In that instant, Tulsi seized total control, dismantling Joy's defense in front of a live audience that would never forget what they had just witnessed.
That's why I ran for Congress.
We actually have the clip of Hillary Clinton, just to put this in context of what we're talking about. Let's take a look at that.
I'm not making any predictions, but I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third-party candidate. She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of, sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far. And that's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not, because she's also a Russian asset.
So
really? I mean, this is outrageous. This is outrageous and offensive on so many levels. I've served as a member of Congress now for almost 7 years, receiving high-level national security and intelligence briefings, serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Armed Services Committee, the Homeland Security Committee, working to ensure the safety and security of the people of this country. This is why I'm running for president, to continue that commitment of service.
So are you surprised, though, that when people see bots and things and all the things that we've sort of been seeing heading your way, that people have these questions? Because she's not the only one. Hillary, I don't think, is the only one. So what she's saying is she feels they are grooming you. You're saying nobody's grooming me. I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm a soldier and a patriot.
It's offensive to me as a soldier, as an American, as a member of Congress, as a veteran, and frankly, as a woman, to be so demeaned in such a way.
But you called her the personification of rock.
So demeaned
She's a woman
in such
too.
a way. Well, I'm pointing to the fact that she has continued this legacy of being the world's police around the world, that has waged wars costing the lives of thousands of my brothers and sisters in uniform. I'm speaking out against that, and
What's
to
your
change
evidence to that?
to change.
Well,
Are you serious?
Let's hear it.
Are you serious?
Let's hear it.
I served in the war
Not
in
you,
Iraq.
her. You're saying that she's
exactly.
she's a
I
warmonger.
served
How do
in
you
the
come
war
up with
in
that?
Iraq
Yeah.
that she championed. She championed a regime change war
Did you not
in
believe
Libya.
in that war?
I believe the lies that were told to us.
Well, so did she.
So it is indisputable. It is indisputable.
Joy's grip on her cue cards tightened, as if clutching them could somehow restore her crumbling control. She glanced desperately toward the camera, trying to steady herself, but Tulsi never flinched, her gaze locked and unrelenting. You've built your platform on attacking people like me, Tulsi declared, her voice calm yet packed with force. But here's the truth, Joy. You can't bully someone who's fought on real battlefields. The crowd roared in approval, the energy in the room shifting sharply in Tulsi's favor. Joy attempted a smirk, but it faltered under Tulsi's piercing stare. "I'm just asking questions," Joy muttered, but Tulsi shot back instantly. "No, you're making accusations, and you're doing it to attack my character because you can't win with facts." The studio buzzed with electricity as every word from Tulsi landed like a direct strike. "You even called me an idiot," she continued, leaning in just enough to rattle Joy further. "Yet here you sit ignoring my record, my service, my experience, simply because it doesn't fit your narrative." Joy let out a strained laugh, darting desperate glances toward her co-hosts for backup, but none dared to move. No one wanted to be next in Tulsi's sights. "I've served my country for years," Tulsi pressed on, her tone steady and unshakable. "I've been in war zones, I've seen lives torn apart, and I will not sit here and be belittled by someone who's never walked a single day in my shoes." The audience erupted, some even standing in applause, as Joy's expression collapsed into shock and frustration. She looked trapped, cornered in a battle she couldn't possibly win. One co-host tried to steer the show back on topic, but Tulsi cut in before the momentum could slip away.
To say anything other than the fact
that
Hillary, let me just close this out, that Hillary Clinton throughout her career has led with a foreign policy of interventionism and being the world's police, going and toppling dictators in other countries that has caused such destruction and loss of life. I'm against that. I'm running for president to change that. Rather than actually debate me on the issues, she and others are resorting to these smear tactic campaigns, seeking to undermine me, smear my character, and sending a message to anyone who dissents: toe the line, or you too will be smeared.
"We're not moving on until this is clear," Tulsi declared, her tone firm and unshakable. "You don't get to spread lies and then hide behind a smile." Joy, visibly rattled, tried to push back with, "Well, Tulsi, maybe if you..." But she was cut off immediately. "No, Joy, stop. You've had your turn. Now you're going to listen." The command in her voice froze the room as the audience erupted once again, while even the camera crew hesitated, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the firestorm burn on. Tulsi pressed forward, her voice steady and sharp. "You accuse me without a shred of evidence and then pretend you're just asking questions. That isn't journalism. That's manipulation." The audience gasped, then broke into applause, making it clear they agreed. Joy's shoulders sagged slightly, the fight slipping from her grasp as Tulsi leaned in with precision. "Here's the truth. You call me names, you attack my integrity, but the fact is you're threatened by me, threatened by someone who refuses to play by your rules." Joy stayed silent, and that silence spoke louder than any words she could have mustered. The suffocating tension gripped not only the studio, but every viewer watching from home. Then Tulsi delivered the line that would dominate headlines for days. "So here's my advice, Joy. If you don't want to be called out, stop embarrassing yourself on national television." The crowd exploded, some cheering wildly, others gasping at the blunt force of it all, while Joy's face shifted from shock to anger. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, her eyes darting desperately toward the producers for an escape that wasn't coming. Tulsi leaned back calmly, her stare locked as Joy sat cornered, with no comeback in sight.
I do want to ask you something else. Kamala Harris said recently that her race and gender are, quote, the elephant in the room, and that many still question if America is ready for a woman, and specifically a woman of color, to be president. And you're also a woman of color.
Yeah.
Is that, you feel, been a problem for you? Or do you agree with her?
No, I think the American people are ready for a president that will put people ahead of politics, put people ahead of profits.
Then why is she saying that, you think?
You have to ask Kamala that. I can't speak to why she's saying that. But what I've seen in our travels across New Hampshire, we just came from New Hampshire yesterday, across the early states, we have some New Hampshire people here, is we are building a code to bring about the systemic change we need to see to take our government back from the rich and powerful who control it and make it so our government is truly of, by, and for the people.
Spin it however you want, Tulsi declared, her voice steady and commanding. But the people watching know exactly what happened here today. The studio erupted in thunderous applause, the kind that shook the room and made it obvious whose side the audience had chosen. Tulsi hadn't just defended herself, she flipped the entire exchange upside down, leaving Joy rattled and defeated. Producers finally cut to commercial, but the damage was already done. Social media exploded instantly, clips spreading like wildfire. The clash destined to live online forever. When the cameras returned, Joy tried to act unfazed, but her voice had shifted. Quieter, restrained, almost hesitant. Tulsi, by contrast, sat poised and confident, the undisputed victor of the showdown. It was raw, unscripted television at its peak. Impossible to ignore. Joy had expected to put Tulsi on the defensive, but instead, she was dismantled on her own stage. The tension lingered like a storm cloud, felt by the co-hosts, the audience, and most of all by Joy herself, whose usual swagger had dissolved into unease. Tulsi leaned back with a faint smile, fully aware she had seized the entire set. Joy tried to steer the conversation towards something lighter, but the audience wasn't buying it. They were still buzzing, whispering, reacting to Tulsi's unapologetic takedown. One co-host attempted to break the ice with humor, but Tulsi's unflinching stare at Joy kept the atmosphere heavy. Finally, Joy muttered, "I think we just had a misunderstanding," but Tulsi shut it down instantly. "No, Joy, we had a very clear understanding. You came at me with false accusations, and I responded with the truth." The crowd roared again, clapping and cheering, refusing to let Joy sweep it under the rug. Forcing a tight, uneasy smile, Joy clung to what little dignity she had left, but Tulsi leaned in, calm and resolute. "You can call me whatever names you want, Joy, but the next time you try to discredit someone, make sure you have the facts first, because not everyone will sit here and take it." The words landed like a knockout punch, freezing the room in stunned silence. Joy opened her mouth to reply, then stopped, defeat written all over her face. Tulsi had won, and everyone knew it.
Because recently on your show here...
I was just going to get to that.
Good. Helping you out.
You want me to ask you the question?
Yeah,
No, look,
ask
some
the
of
question.
you
Let me ask you the
have
question.
accused me of being a traitor to my country, a Russian asset, a Trojan horse, or a
We haven't accused you.
useful idiot, I think was the
Well,
term that you
useful.
used. Which basically means that I'm naive or lack
That's a
intelligence
Russian
to
term.
know what's going
they
on.
They use that.
I want to let your viewers know exactly who I am.
All right.
Set the record straight. I am a patriot. I love our country. I am a strong and intelligent woman of color, and I have dedicated almost my entire adult life to protecting the safety, security, and the freedom of all Americans in this country. It was the attacks on 9/11.
By the time Tulsi walked off set, social media was already on fire. Clips of her calling Joy out and demanding accountability spread like wildfire. Hashtags trending before the episode had even wrapped. Political commentators rushed in, supporters praised Tulsi's fearless stance, and critics of The View hailed it as one of the most brutal takedowns in daytime TV history. Joy, meanwhile, stayed silent the rest of the day, carefully avoiding any response. But her silence only poured fuel on the flames, sending the clip into overdrive. Tulsi embraced the moment, later posting a short statement thanking viewers for their support and reminding them that standing up for truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth it. Her words struck a chord, racking up thousands of shares and comments, cementing her image as someone unafraid to face even the most hostile stages head on. In the end, Tulsi didn't just survive her appearance on The View, she dominated it, controlled it, and left a mark neither Joy Behar nor the show itself could shake off anytime soon. This wasn't just another on-air spat, it became a national reminder that even on tightly managed platforms, truth can slice straight through, and when it does, it's unforgettable. For Joy, the sting of that moment would linger, a constant reminder every time she sat in that chair that one guest had stood up to her without fear, without apology, and without backing down.